Peace, family. It's your brother, Marc Lamont Hill. You're watching the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel. I want to thank everybody for joining me here tonight. I apologize for getting such a late start. Uh, Unfortunately, I had a family emergency and I'm just getting home. Uh, it's been a crazy night, but I absolutely remain committed to the work. But family always comes first. But I want to thank you all for coming into the room. If you don't join me live, you'll catch me tomorrow morning. But I want to welcome but I want to welcome everybody back to night school. Night school every Monday to Thursday. We will be here talking about the most important issues going on in the world, breaking stuff down, giving you a classroom-like environment where we break stuff down. It's not going to be boring like school is to some of y'all, but it is going to be educational the way school is. Anyway, I don't want to talk your heads off about this, but I want to get right into what we've been talking about. Let's start. First, a new Baltimore jail is being built. This is I wish I could say that this was something shocking. Give me 1 second, y'all. I'm sorry. I'm trying to set something up here. We had a little tech issue, and I'm doing it on the fly. Like I said, I came straight in the door from the hospital and said, "Let me knock this out for y'all because I want to make sure we get all the information." All right, y'all. A new Baltimore jail is being built. Not a regular jail, y'all, but a $1 billion jail. This is set to be the most expensive project in the state of Maryland's history. This is called the Baltimore Therapeutic Treatment Center, the Baltimore Therapeutic Treatment Center. And it is going to serve as a hospital and a treatment facility for mental health and substance abuse. Now, that sounds great. For many people out there who have been talking about mass incarceration and who have been saying that, we can't just lock people up. We have to treat them. We have to address mental illness. We have to address addiction. They're saying, look, we're going to give you a prison or a jail, and we're going to give you mental health and substance abuse. This seems like all the things that a lot of people want, particularly reformers, but it's never quite that simple. There's some serious concerns that already exist in the Baltimore jail system. There aren't enough units for nurses. There's not enough space for mental health facilities. The corrections department is experiencing a staffing shortage due to the listing of its private medical provider in a bankruptcy case. Because, once this stuff gets privatized, the public good is no longer as important as the bottom line financially. And a study examining 180 in-custody deaths in Maryland detention centers found that half of those deaths occurred in the first 10 days. The first 10 days. That means that 180 people died in custody. 90 of them died in the first 10 days. Why do people die in the first 10 days of jail custody? They die in the first 10 days of jail custody because they have health issues when they come in and people don't know. Somebody has a heart issue. Somebody has high blood pressure, like dangerously high blood pressure. Whatever the issue might be, but they come into the jail already sick. They come into the jail already not well, and they go ignored and they die. And if that's not enough, of all the things I just told you, the state also has yet to fully comply with any of their 9 provisions that it was required to follow after a 2016 settlement, a legal settlement on the quality of healthcare provided in the jail. So when you know that the jails are chronically underfunded, they're undersupported, they don't pay attention to people's well-being, they don't staff well, they go bankrupt, people die in their custody, and then you say, well, let's put $1 billion in it. That could go one of two ways. You could say, well, look, they're finally putting their money where their mouth is. They're finally taking $1 billion and investing it in the jail so that they can actually finally meet their goals and meet their standards that they articulate. Or they're doubling down on the same old problems. They're not spending $1 billion to treat people better, even if they think they are. What they're actually going to do is spend $1 billion investing in criminalization. That same $1 billion could be spent for mental health support outside of a criminal legal system. That same $1 billion could be spent creating jobs. It could be spent providing mental health care. It It could be spent providing drug treatment. It could be spent providing restorative justice practices. It could be spent in ways that will prevent people from going into the criminal legal system, rather than spending all of that money figuring out how to deal with people once they get there, because the state simply doesn't have the will, the capacity, or the know-how to address these types of issues in any kind of real way. And that's a problem. That's a major problem. And it's one that we have to think about. It's one we have to talk about. But unfortunately, and this is why I use the language of criminal legal system rather than criminal justice system, because there's no justice. There's just no justice in it. It's a legal system, right? The system isn't designed to produce justice. It's designed to produce convictions and incarcerations. It's designed to produce outcomes that are very similar to what you see. Let me not even compare it to anything else. And I say that because the U.S. criminal legal system is so unique. 1 in 4 of the world's prisoners are right here in the United States. We lock up 1 in 100 American adults. The number of people locked up in America, the number of people caged in America is so extraordinarily high that there's really absolutely no comparison to be made anywhere else. And other places lock up their people. We lock up more people per capita. We lock up more people raw numbers than just about any other country in the world. In fact, than any other country in the world. You might demonize China. You might talk about Cuba. You might talk about South Korea. We lock more up. You may talk about some of these new authoritarian rulers in Europe. You add up any 2 of them countries, we got more. So this isn't about that. It's about something else. And so when they say we're going to double down on the thing that's created an incarceration nation, I can't go for it. All right, y'all, another interesting story that came through today. A new lawsuit is accusing a cancer charity of only using 1 cent. That's right, 1 cent, 1 penny out of every dollar to actually help the patients. Can you imagine that? That number sounds so crazy. Y'all probably think I'm misspeaking or you misunderstood. No, for every dollar donated, this charity spends 1 cent to help patients. We still in that state of Maryland. Yo, Maryland been off the hook lately. The Maryland Attorney General, the Secretary of State, the Federal Trade Commission, and other states are accusing the Women's Cancer Fund of deceiving its donors. The Women's Cancer Fund. I gotta say, I'm so glad it wasn't a black fund. I'm so glad that it wasn't. I'm so glad that it wasn't a black fund. If it had been like the African American Resource Center, if it had been, money for little kids starving in Africa, I'd have been like, yo, we ain't never gonna get no help again. I don't want any charity to be stealing money, but when it's black, it just makes it extra difficult. But anyway, the charity has raised allegedly $18 million. $18 million. But according to the tax filings, cancer patients have gotten only about $195,000. Can you imagine that? They fundraised $18 million, only $195,000 goes to the patients. But here's what's wild about that number. The president of the charity, Gregory Anderson, was paying himself almost $800,000. So he made 4 times as much. He made 4 times as much as they actually gave to the cancer patients. And this is not unusual. I got to be honest with you. I wish that this were unusual. I wish that I could say that this doesn't happen all the time. Now, it doesn't normally happen to this extreme. It's not normally like 1 cent on the dollar, but it's often 20 cents on the dollar. It's often 18 cents on the dollar, sometimes 30 cents on the dollar. But all of those numbers are absurdly low. So a lot of times when these nonprofits, and let me not speak to nonprofits, these charities in particular, so much of the money goes to infrastructure. So much of the money goes to paying executives. So much of the money goes to fundraisers. It goes to everything but the thing that you're actually supposed to be handling. And so this is why people are often skeptical of donating to charities, because charities, even if they're well-intentioned, often are so bureaucratic and so front-loaded or top-heavy rather with administration, with all this other stuff, that the people who actually deserve it don't get it. Now, sometimes it's just because people poorly run the company. Sometimes it's because they hire so many people to administer and run things because they want it done well that they look up and there just ain't that much money left. But then sometimes, as this appears to be, I don't know, they deserve a full investigation, but as it appears to be, the Women's Cancer Fund, God, can you imagine? Can you imagine the Women's Cancer Fund? This isn't about bureaucracy or poor organizational management. This is about people getting over. If you only get 1%, 1 cent on the dollar, that means you're stealing. So if this turns out to be true and the evidence is damning, then these people are exactly what's wrong with our world and exactly what's wrong with philanthropy, exactly what's wrong with so many parts of the nonprofit world and not-for-profit world. This is a super big deal, and I hope we pay attention to it. But I also hope that it doesn't stop us from donating to causes that are good and causes that are just. Donate to nonprofits, donate to social justice movements, donate to people who are raising money, but make sure when you do that, that you understand their structure. Ask for records, ask for their tax filings, because this is all public information. Ask for the information that you need to know in order to ensure that that your money is actually going where you expect it to be going. Doug this Mitchell said, "How legal is that?" This is not legal. This is part of the challenge, right? Now, I'm not an expert on this, so I don't want to speak to how much, of a cut companies are supposed to get or allowed to keep. I don't want to say how much of an organization has to be structured in a certain way so that the money goes here or there. I don't know that. So I'll let the experts, I'll let the lawyers speak to that. But what I do know is that the fact the Maryland Attorney General, the Secretary of State, and the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, are accusing them of basically fraud. And the reason is because if you're taking only 1%, then you're actually not a charity. I mean, there are for-profit organizations that give that in in-kind donations or in whatever, you know what I mean? So I don't know what the legal threshold is, but I do know that the lawyers are saying that this is not legal. So I'm basing it on them. I don't have any personal expertise on this, so I don't want to speak to it. But 1% on the dollar, come on, y'all. We could do better than that. All right, let's leave Maryland alone for a minute, because there's another state that's always tripping as well. Of course, it's the great state, or the not so great state of Florida. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has signed a bill restricting minors from social media. Under the bill, children under the age of 14 cannot have a social media account, while children ages 14 and 15 will need parental consent. Companies will need to delete accounts of those under 14 and can be sued by the child if they fail to. Children can be awarded up to $10,000 in damages. So this is an interesting move. It's in line in a lot of ways with what Ron DeSantis has always been saying and doing as governor of Florida. That is to say, he's always saying, "I'm going to protect the kids," right? I'm the conservative. I respect the movement to protect children. You look at groups like Moms for Liberty, who he is in political cahoots with, or it's all about saying that we know what's best for our children. We're going to protect our children from these racist curriculums. We're going to protect them from critical race theory. We're going to protect them from 1619. But now they're saying they're going to protect them from social media. And so this bill effectively says that if you're 14 or over, you're in the game. If you're under 14, you're not in the game. But if you're 14 and 15, you're only in the game if your parents say yes. And of course, companies now have a duty, right? The Facebooks, the TikToks, they say, look, if somebody's 13 and admitted it, you cut them off. You delete the account. Now, is this reasonable? I struggle with this. There's a way that the social media world is a cesspool. And without strong and consistent parental oversight, I could totally see why you wouldn't want a 10 or 11 or 12-year-old on there. I have, you know, well, grown children now, but I could think back to, in addition to a baby, and I could think to a time where, yeah, I absolutely didn't want my 10-year-old or my 12-year-old to be on Instagram, and she couldn't have an Instagram for that reason. Um, I don't know what I think the legal threshold should be for these kinds of sites. Is it 13? Is it 16? I don't know. It's interesting, though, that the Republicans, who are often so committed to saying parental, units should have their own say in these things. The top-down government, big government, shouldn't be deciding for parents. The government should get out of your household. It should get out of your bedroom. It should get out of your this. It should get out of your that. But then they're saying you, as a parent, can't let your 12-year-old have a TikTok or an Instagram. Now, I guess there are ways around it. Obviously, kids can lie about their age. That's the easy way out. Parents can make an account and let their kids have access to it. That's another way. Because I don't know if this will actually stop a whole lot of social media activity by underage kids as much as it'll change how they identify online. But there is something to be said and a question to be raised about why they're intervening here. Again, I don't disagree that social media is messy and nasty, and I don't necessarily disagree at the idea of restricting it for parents. Um, I'm inclined to do the same. Um, but I don't know if I want the government making that decision for me. And that's the question that we have to ask ourselves. That's the question that everybody has to constantly ask, right? Like, do we want these restrictions? One, but two, um, do we want the government to make them, even if we agree, even if we agree with them? All right, y'all, we got a couple more stories to go, and don't worry. And Jazz, I see you. Don't worry, y'all. We will get to Gaza. Ain't no doubt about that, as always. But I wanted to get to some of these other stories as well. Diddy's, oh, let me correct this before I start reading, because I might edit this later, and I don't want to look crazy. I am educated, and I don't want y'all to say otherwise. Y'all dig what I'm saying? Diddy's homes get raided. Oh my God. Earlier today, the world, certainly the country, was in an uproar when the homes in Miami and in Los Angeles of Sean Diddy Combs were raided by federal agents earlier as part of an ongoing investigation. Homeland Security, Homeland Security agents executed search warrants on his homes again in Miami and in Los Angeles. Videos outside the home appear to show two of his sons, Justin and Christian, in handcuffs. Now, after the raids were conducted, TMZ also had another video. This is the problem with this world today. You can't do nothing without being seen. So they got the kids in handcuffs in the home. And then on the other side, they have a video of Diddy at the Miami Opa-locka Executive Airport. Understand, the Miami Opa-locka Executive Airport is basically where the private jets fly out. Y'all might not know that because, people, places like Opa-locka and Teterboro, all those places, they're not for regular people. They're not for people like you and me. I only know about these places from rap songs, just to be clear. And they captured a video of him pacing at the Miami Opa-locka Executive Airport, where he and others were allegedly stopped by federal agents. So I don't know the truth of anything yet, right? We're waiting for the facts to be uncovered. But here's what I know for sure. It don't look good for Diddy. First, the feds are raiding your homes. Second, Homeland Security is involved. Now, I'm not saying that the feds don't get it wrong. The government has been railroading people, especially black people, for a gajillion years. So I'm not pretending that that ain't the case, right? We don't know. I don't know what's going on, right? But I will tell you this: when the feds raid your home, they got a case. When the Fed raid your home, they got a case. Now, I'm not talking about innocent or guilty right now. I'm just saying they have built a case. The feds don't come at you with no weak case. That's why their conviction rate is like 99% or something like that, 90+%, maybe even be 98, 99%. The reason is because they build a case. And they don't build small cases. The feds ain't coming after him for stealing cable. They're not coming after him for freaky sex parties. They're coming after him for something. Now, let me be clear. They did not arrest Diddy. To my knowledge, there was no arrest warrant. There was just a search. But what I'm saying is when, and if I said arrest, forgive me, I misspoke. I didn't think I said that, but if I did, I misspoke. What I'm saying is that when the feds come into your home, when they raid your crib, they are building a case. And when they have built, and they don't act until they have built the case. So what I'm saying is that whatever Diddy is going through, it is not an easy hurdle. This is not like beating a state gun charge or a state murder charge. This is not like beating a drug trafficking conviction. When the Homeland Security is involved, when the feds are raiding your home, it is because you have been part of a case that has been built that is strong. And it's going to take a lot to get out of it. And what they try to do is get you to negotiate. They try to get you to plea. They try to get you to snitch. They try to get you to fold. Now, again, I'm not saying anybody's innocent. I'm not saying anybody's guilty. But what I'm saying is it doesn't look good for Diddy. Now, all of this comes following a string of allegations against the rapper involving sexual assault, sex trafficking, and harassment. So all of this is happening. Now, so far, everything that Diddy has faced has been civil. So Diddy hasn't been arrested. He hasn't been charged. To my knowledge, at the moment of this recording, he has not been charged with anything. He has not been arrested. But again, it doesn't look good. And you know what else doesn't look good? When the feds are raiding your home and your children are in handcuffs and you're at a private airport getting on a jet. And as I understand it, the jet landed in the Caribbean, I believe in Barbuda. So what it looks like is, I'm not saying this is what happened. You ain't gonna sue me. But what it looks like is that Diddy was trying to bounce because he knew the feds was on his ass and he left other people holding the bag. Now, I'm not saying that's what happened, but that's what it looks like. And it does not look good. So we'll find out what happened. Diddy deserves a day in court like everybody else. But if it is what it looks like, he is going to have a very difficult time getting bail. He's going to have to surrender his passport. He's going to have to surrender super bags of money. But he's a billionaire. So him giving up 10 million, 20 million, 50 million doesn't necessarily mean anything. Even though these guys are often not that liquid, it's still a situation where they may not want to let him have bail if he is arrested. Now, maybe he won't be. Maybe they'll do the investigation. They'll bust in the home. They'll lock somebody else up. Maybe they won't lock anybody up. But I'm going to tell you, I'm going to say it one more time. The feds don't usually bust up in the crib. They usually don't do raids. They usually don't pop up and lock and put people in handcuffs unless they have a case that they have already built. They don't usually show their hand until it's late in the game. And now, from what we're hearing, and again, some of this is rumor, but what we know for sure is that there have been allegations of sex trafficking in the civil suits. There have been allegations of underage girls in the civil suits. So did someone tip off the feds, or the feds already been looking? Is there something going on that we have no idea about that has nothing to do with the civil cases? All possible. All possible. All possible. All possible. But we don't know. What I hope is that whoever was harmed finds justice and is made whole. And I hope that everyone is treated the way they're supposed to be. But this is a mess. And it's a mess that if you had told me 6 months ago, I wouldn't have seen coming. I mean, Diddy had an R&B album out. Diddy was looking at probably a Grammy. Diddy had his businesses together. He seemed to have, he was officially a billionaire. I don't know. I don't know. Suddenly, everything tipped a different direction. And what's really interesting is that much of it happened after he refused to settle with Cassie. And you got to wonder, you can't replay life and you don't know how to deal with something or how to respond to something or how to make sense of something. Um, you don't know how to make sense of something. Um, that's counterfactual. That is to say, who knows what would have happened if he had settled with Cassie privately? Would the other lawsuits have come out? Would the feds be looking at him? Would there be an investigation? I don't know. But I know that he probably, if I watch this as an outsider, looks like he might have reason to regret doing that. Not settling, because in that 48 hours where he didn't settle, a whole lot of stuff came out and it emboldened a whole lot of people. That's all I'm saying. All right, we're gonna move on to two more stories. One of them is about Gaza. One of them is about Kendrick. But I'm going to ask y'all to just hold on for 1 second. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Right? You make her happy, so you'll be all right. And happy wife normally is about happy life for me. Right. That's what I'm saying. It ain't about her, it's about you.
So Van says that because Jewish people showed up for Black Americans during the Civil Rights era, he now feels compelled to stand with them now. Let me be clear.
What's the white liberal ideology I'm following?
I'm not saying you.
No, that's what you said. So I'm saying, which one?
No one is free until we are all free. There is no room for any injustice.
Right? You make her happy, so you'll be all right. And happy wife normally is about happy life for me. Right. That's what I'm saying. It ain't about her, it's about you.
So Van says that because Jewish people showed up for Black Americans during the Civil Rights era, he now feels compelled to stand with them now. Let me be clear.
What's the white liberal ideology I'm following?
I'm not saying you.
No, that's what you said. So I'm saying, which one?
No one is free until we are all free. There is no room for any injustice. All right, family, we're back. Kendrick Lamar wants all the smoke. If y'all, I wish I had been with y'all on Friday, man. I wish I had been with y'all on Friday because when that song dropped, it was crazy. All right, anyway, let me reset. Let me calibrate myself because some of the stuff I'll put up later in pieces and I want to make sure that it's whole and I want to look professional and stuff like that. If you opened up your phone this weekend and you saw Kendrick Lamar release a verse that set the world on fire. He dissed Drake. He dissed J. Cole. If you didn't know, it was on an album called We Don't Trust You by Metro Boomin and Future. And on the album, which people like, I haven't listened to the album yet, but I did listen to Like That. Like That is the name of the track. And K. Dot, he took a jab at both of them. He didn't take jabs. To me, they were haymakers. People made it sound like he was dropping subliminals. Nah, he was very clear. And there are some explainers on the internet that break down exactly how vicious Kendrick's verses were. But Kendrick laid into J. Cole and Drake. I don't know why, to tell you the truth. It's been fascinating to me to watch this. I mean, is this just competitiveness? Is this just old school, like Biggie, Jay-Z, and Nas type stuff? But I know at some point he said, F the big three, is just me. It's not big three, it's big me. This is what Kendrick talked about. He said he made several references to dogs, pointing, to or alluding to for all the dogs, Drake's For All the Dogs album, right? Future on the album also was taking shots at Drake a little bit. Apparently they had some kind of falling out. They had some kind of issue or beef. At least Future feels like they do. Because Future was taking subs at Drake. And so this album has a lot of Drake diss in it. But what I'm telling you, what Kendrick did with J. Cole and what Kendrick did with J. Cole and Drake, it demands a response. And I hope it's on wax. I don't want to see no Instagram posts. I don't want to see no IG stories. I want Drake to go in the booth and spit. I want J. Cole to go in the booth and spit. I'm particularly interested in hearing J. Cole's bars. I think J. Cole, as a lyricist, is in the same space Kendrick said. I think they're elite MCs, elite lyricists. Drake is up there too, but I think he's just, a half a step below them as a lyricist, but probably a whole step in front of them in terms of, hit maker and song creator, So that's not a diss against Drake. It's just saying they got different skill sets. But when it comes to these bars, it's going to be a slugfest. It's going to be a battle royal if they respond. But I'm not sure they will, because during a Sunday performance, Drake addressed it. He didn't come out with a verse. He didn't do a back-to-back. You know what I mean? He didn't do what he did with Meek Mill when he came out. He didn't do what he did with Pusha T. He didn't make a charged up first, then a back-to-back like he did with Meek. He didn't do a duppy freestyle like he did with Pusha T. He just spoke. And at the performance, he said, I got my head held high, my back straight, I'm 10 fucking toes down, and I know no matter what, there's not another nigga that could ever fuck with me on this earth. I'm sure the fans cheered. I'm sure he got lots of love. I'm sure he got lots of support for that position, for those words. But what he didn't get was busy. And that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for him to actually rap. Douglas Mitchell here said, and J. Cole caught a necessary stray. A necessary stray or unnecessary stray? I didn't get why J. Cole was in the mix at all. I mean, I guess because J. Cole and Drake have been rhyming together, and they put out the song, they put out a song together, first person shooter. They put out, they talk about there's a big three. And to me, when you talk about a big three and you're actually shouting out Kendrick, even though he ain't in the mix with y'all in terms of being on the album, to me, that's respect and love. So I'm like, what the F was in Kendrick's? You know what I mean? Who upset Kendrick? Because he came out, man, this ain't the first time he did it. He did it with Control, where he's laying in the cut. He don't say nothing. Cole and Drake is outside. And Kendrick comes out spitting. And the question is, well, if Kendrick came out spitting and he's, he talked crazy to all y'all, why? Did y'all do something on the low? Did y'all piss him off? Does he not really rock with y'all? They had to rock at some point. I mean, Drake and Kendrick had a song together, right? They had actually a wonderful song on as a Poetic Justice on Good Kid, Mad City. So they it ain't like they've always not rocked with each other. So what's this about? What's this about? Or is it just competitiveness? Because I love competitive hip hop. I love when people just come out and rap. I love back in the day when Hove and Nas and Big and Raekwon and Ghost and when people was just spitting subs at each other, right? It rain on the top is short like leprechauns as I crush so-called willies, thugs, and rapper dons, right? Big is not just spitting randomness. He's talking to Nas, kicking the doors to Nas. Like, that's what I'm talking about. What's Ghostface said on the Purple tape, right? He's coming after Big. That's what I'm talking about. So look, I'm down with the competitiveness. I'm down with the competitiveness. I'm down with just spitting bars and spit bars. I could rock with that. I could respect that. I love that. As long as it stays on wax, I'm good. It's Drake, so I'm not worried about it. It's like taking the guns. Drake is not a take it to the mattresses and kill people type of person. And neither is Cole and neither is Kendrick. They seem to be grown men who understand their role as artists and leaders. So I respect that too. But when I say leave it on wax, I'm not just talking about violence. I'm talking about, like, I don't want to see subliminal messages on the social media. I don't want to see, what used to be records now turning into tweets. I want to make sure these dudes be rapping. That's all I'm saying. I need these dudes to be rapping. All right. Before we go, y'all, we got to get to some serious business. We got to get to some serious business. And I want to let y'all know that I take this very seriously. It's the last story of the day because it's the one I want to give the most time and attention to. The war on Gaza has now reached day 171. Every single day here on the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel, we're going to cover the war on Gaza. We're going to cover all the information, all the stories. We're going to give you everything that you need to be able to understand what's happening. We're going to cover what corporate media refuses to cover. We're going to give you the information that mainstream outlets refuse to acknowledge. We're going to give you the dates. We're going to give you the data. We're going to give you the perspective. We're going to give you the developments. We're going to give you everything that that you need to make sense of it, because this is a crazy situation. As I always say, this is not a war with Gaza. It's not a war in Gaza. This is a war on Gaza. And I start this information by talking first about the raw numbers. I want to start by talking about the raw numbers. At least 32,333 Palestinians have now been killed. 32,333 Palestinians have been killed, and 74,694 have been wounded since October 7th in Gaza. The revised death toll in Israel from Hamas's October 7th attack stands at 1,139, with dozens remaining captive, remaining kidnapped. With that information in mind, I want to tell you some of the other information that's come up, because it speaks to why the numbers are growing so consistently, if not exponentially, in the last week. Israel acknowledged on Sunday that it killed dozens of fighters and arrested 450 people in the week-old operation in and around Al-Shifa Hospital, which is in Gaza City, adding that it located military equipment and infrastructure in the area. Now, this has been something Israel's been saying for months now, that Al-Shifa Hospital, which is the principal hospital in Gaza, the primary hospital inside of the Gaza Strip, that has at times 30,000 people in it, right? I mean, in terms of workers, hospital folk, doctors, medical transports, as well as actual patients. And they've once again waged a kind of battle in and near Al-Shifa Hospital. And the argument has always been that it's not really a hospital, that it's a military target, that it's a military headquarters, that it's a base for Hamas. Well, I don't know if it is or it isn't, but the evidence that they presented certainly hasn't made it seem like it is. The case that they've made has been weak. The evidence that they've presented, one time it was a couple weapons and a box of dates, and they said, oh, this is definitely a command center. I mean, come on. And even if it were a place where there were Hamas operatives or Hamas fighters, that doesn't mean that the hospital necessarily loses its protected status. In fact, it doesn't lose the protected status unless, they can meet a pretty high burden of proof, which Israel has never met or really tried to meet in terms of presenting it to the global community. They just keep saying, believe us, believe us, believe us. The Israeli military has now claimed that Hamas fighters have barricaded themselves inside of Al-Shifa Hospital and are throwing explosives from inside the maternity ward and the emergency room. Again, organizations have attempted to independently verify these claims. I work at Al Jazeera. I know for a fact Al Jazeera has attempted to prove this information factual or unfactual, and so far they haven't been able to verify the Israeli claims. Now, the claims haven't been disproven, but how do you disprove something? How do you disprove that Hamas is in the maternity ward throwing hand grenades or dropping bombs, right? You have to prove that they're there. And I can tell you, as somebody who has spoken to doctors in Al-Shifa Hospital, I've spoken to people. In fact, you can see right on the channel my interview with Abdul Wahab Abu Warda. He's never seen any indications of this. I've spoken to European doctors as well who've never seen any indication of this. Show me to the people who have seen an indication of this. That's all I'm saying. But Palestinians who fled the continuing Israeli siege of the hospital say that Israeli tanks and armored bulldozers drove over at least 4 bodies and ambulances. I'm going to say that again. They say that Israeli tanks and armored bulldozers drove over at least 4 bodies and ambulances. Now, I don't know if those bodies were already dead or not. Either way, it's shameful. Driving over ambulances is never okay. Driving over medical support vehicles is disgusting. And yet, this is what we're dealing with. This is what we're seeing. During the week, Israel extended its attacks on medical complexes to El Amal and Nasser hospitals in Khan Yunis. Let me say that again, because I don't want that to go over your head. It's not just Al-Shifa that's been attacked. The El Amal hospital and Al Nasser hospital, which is in Khan Yunis, has also been under attack. This isn't the first time that Nasser has been under attack. About 6 weeks ago, Nasser was under intense attack by Israeli forces as well. It's impossible under these circumstances for sick people to get in. It's impossible for people who are well to get out. It's impossible for people to get anywhere near the hospital, which just creates another intensifying factor to what has become a genocide. People can't get help. They can't get safety. They can't get medical treatment. The doctors are telling me that they're literally leaving the hospital and treating people on the ground because it's all they have. Palestinians have accused Israel of repeatedly targeting hospitals over the last, what's now almost 6 months of bombardment. The UN Health Agency was forced to end its mission at El Shifa Hospital, in fact, because of the attack. So not only are the patients experiencing the conditions I just described, but the outside international health agencies can't stay. I mean, how can you stay in a hospital where it's getting bombed? Separately, the Palestinian Red Crescent said on Sunday that one of its staff members and a displaced person have been killed in El Amal because of heavy bombardment and gunfire. So we're seeing it all over the place. Khan Yunis residents said on Sunday that troops also advanced and formed a cordon around Nasser Hospital under cover of heavy air and gunfire. And lastly, the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees says Israel will no longer allow its food convoys to enter northern Gaza, where people are dying of hunger. I hope you understand what this means. I don't want to understate that. In fact, let me say that one more time. The UN Agency for Refugees, UNRWA, is saying that Israel will no longer allow food convoys to enter northern Gaza. We've talked about the violence, we've talked about the bullets, we've talked about the start, all the things that are going on in the south. But in the north, people are starving. People are literally dying of hunger. Babies are dying of hunger. Adults are eating animal feed to survive, and they're dying, or they're getting sick and dying. They're either dying of starvation or dying and getting sick. They're dying of malnutrition. They're dying of dehydration. Remember, Israel has also destroyed more than 100 wells. I believe the number was 112. This is what we're talking about. This is a crisis. This is a crisis. And yet Israel's still talking about doubling down. They're talking about entering Rafah. In fact, even the Biden administration, which has been fairly lockstep with Israel, has stood up now and said, hey, wait a minute. You can't invade Rafah, which is still at the top of Israel's strategic tactical list, according to Israel itself. That's what Netanyahu said. And but Vice President Kamala Harris said that it would be a huge mistake for Israel to move into Rafah without any type of major military operation. We're talking about a military operation. Let me tell you what she said. She said, we have been clear in multiple conversations and in every way that any major military operation in Rafah would be a huge mistake. She's saying you can't go into Rafah. But are they still going to go into Rafah? Of course they are. But let's get to the big story today. The big story out of Israel is upset at the UN resolution. Today, the United Nations passed a resolution demanding the immediate ceasefire in Gaza. The Security Council voted 14-0 in favor of the resolution, with the United States abstaining from voting. The resolution, presented by the Security Council's 10 non-permanent members, calls for an immediate ceasefire for the month of Ramadan, immediate and unconditional release of hostages, and the, quote, urgent need to expand the flow of aid into Gaza. Now, this is the first time the Council called for a ceasefire, as the previous ceasefire resolutions were blocked by who? The United States. Now, in response to the United States not blocking the resolution, Israel has gotten upset. Now, again, let's be clear. The United States did not block the resolution. The U.S. did not vote for the resolution. The U.S. simply abstained from voting for the resolution. And Israel has now gotten mad, and they have canceled their meetings with officials in Washington. And according to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, the United States is, quote, retreating from a principled position. So this is fascinating for multiple reasons. First, the United States has taken a position that's not in the interests of Israel. But even when taking a position that's not in the interests of Israel, the best the United States could do was abstain. We saw this under the Obama administration about settlement expansion the same way. You know, the U.S. still didn't vote against Israel. They just said we won't vote. But what Israel depends on is the U.S. to use its status as a permanent member of the United Nations Security Council to veto it. Because you see, if a permanent member vetoes something, the U.S., the U.K., was it France? Is it China? Is it Russia? When they veto something, it's a wrap. It's a wrap. That's it. When the permanent members veto a resolution, it's over. So no matter what the world does, if the U.S. or the U.K. or France, but usually it's the U.S. You know, that often is in the front of the line, when they stand up and say, "Hey, no, we're vetoing this," it's it. And so Israel's been shielded by the U.S. Today, the U.S. said, "We are not shielding you." Now, that's as close to a rebuke of Israeli policy as the U.S. is going to offer. And they still didn't vote. No, they just abstained. And yet Israel is still saying that the U.S. has retreated from a principled position. And all this resolution did was have a temporary ceasefire during the month of Ramadan. We only got 2 weeks. That doesn't make Palestinians safer. It allows Israel to retool. It allows them to get their hostages out and then devastate the Gaza Strip. I'm not even sure that a temporary ceasefire is a good thing. That's even in the interest of the Palestinian people, ultimately. But it does give them some relief in the moment, and that is good. It does stop people from dying tomorrow, which is good. But for all that to happen, here's another thing. Israel has to listen. Israel has to make a decision that it is going to follow the words and follow the advice and follow the order of the Security Council. And it doesn't look like they are. They've made it very clear that they're not going to listen to anybody, including the United States. So even with this resolution, there's no cause for real optimism. But as we are 2 weeks out, just about, 2 weeks out of Eid al-Fitr, which marks the end of the month of Ramadan, this resolution is thin no matter how it plays out. But still, Israel's mad and the U.S. was cowardly. But what else is new? Anyway, family, I want to thank y'all for watching. I appreciate y'all. We're going to keep supporting the cause by telling the truth every single day here at Night School. It's going to be Israel, but it's also going to be all the other topics as you see. We're not just covering one thing. We're covering a lot of stuff. So spread the word and get people to watch. Normally, it'll be Monday through Thursday at 10:30. Again, an emergency pushed us later tonight, but in general, we are going to be here every single night at 10:30, breaking this stuff down for you. I ask everybody to support the channel by hitting the like button. Everybody who's on right now, please hit that like button. Please hit that like button. Also, hit the subscribe button. Some of you are watching for the first time. Hit the subscribe button so that you can get the updates on what's going on here every single day. If you're so inclined, hit the join button. We love it if you could become a member of the channel and support monthly the channel. Somebody did that already. Jazz LP wrote in, and by the way, she said, "What are we going to do regarding Gaza? The U.S. is doing nothing. IDF has 176,000 soldiers. Million Man March on Washington turnout was 400K. Can we strategize and go to Gaza as brothers and sisters as a soft coup?" They said, "No, we cannot." There's a million reasons why, right? Strategically, it doesn't make sense. Also, I don't think it's the best approach. I think that brothers and sisters ain't trying to go to Gaza, and I don't think it's wise for them to go to Gaza. But also, even if they went to Gaza, they couldn't get into Gaza. There's absolutely no way. Israel don't even let food trucks in. They definitely not letting in 200, 300, 400,000 Negroes to come in there to bust their guns. So that wouldn't, be the answer. What we need is a diplomatic answer. What we need is a resolution. What we need right now is not to increase violence, but to stop violence. I would love to see a permanent ceasefire. And that's not going to come with the threat of weapons or the threat of war. It's going to come with international pressure. And we're beginning to see that pressure play out right now. But let's see what happens with the Security Council. I want to shout out Venetia David for gifting 5 memberships. Hopefully somebody's grabbed those memberships already. If not, please grab them, because that's a hell of a gift, yo. That's so beautiful. I'm so grateful to you for doing that, my sister. Thank you so much. Everybody, please, please, please if you can, make that join button something you do. Become a member of the channel. If not, we ask that you just make a small donation, you know, if you can. If you can't, don't worry about it. But if you can, please make a donation. Go to Cash App MLHTV. Again, Cash App MLHTV. If everybody watching right now just gave $2, we would pay our bills for the day. If everybody who's watching just gave $2, not 3, not 4, not 5, just $2. If everybody just gave $2, we'd be able to pay our bills for the day. We'd be able to pay for our producer. We'd be able to pay for our editor. We'd be able to pay to keep this content rolling out. So thank you so much for your work. Thank you so much for your support. And I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.